Quite a few of you were here a couple years ago when we introduced this experiment that we were starting with Cal OES. Well, here we are, another 2 years into the process, and it's gotten robust enough, and we've gotten enough positive feedback and user support that we are now rolling it out, and we are going to actually change our heat headline criteria to be more in line with this versus our traditional heat index. This was our dilemma. This was very similar to what y'all saw 2 years ago. But California is a long, skinny state, and we go everything from below sea level to 10,000 feet. I mean, we have climates galore, microclimates. But Weather Service, in their wisdom, said all of Weather Service offices are going to put all of their heat products dependent on heat index with a high humidity. Well, here in California, we all know the reason we love to live here is we don't have bugs because we have dry heat. So when we would see those 105, 110 degree ambient air temperatures, 90% of the time the humidity was so low that the heat index was lower. So we were never actually hitting that criteria, but we've discovered through much research and feedback, and Bill is one of the founders of all of the programming on this, so big thanks to Bill for helping us put this together, but now we have the official experimental HeatRisk. So I already mentioned this. We're very diverse. We go from the coast to the mountains and everything in between. But this patchwork right here was in 2013. You can see we had everything under the sun out. We had advisories out. We had warnings out. We had special weather statements, but everybody was experiencing the same heat. And it was because we weren't actually hitting that heat index, but we knew people were being impacted. So we knew this had to change. You guys were confused. The public was confused. Cal OES was confused. So we knew we had to come up with a better way. So we started digging into the research, and have you guys heard of the Coxstein method that came back out in the late 90s? That's what the coastal offices were using, but there was more humidity, but it was lower temperatures. We had different infrastructures. We knew during the 2006 event that there were rolling blackouts and brownouts because it was so hot. So it's not just the human factor. There's infrastructure factor. There was huge amounts of livestock that unfortunately died with the heat. So there was more to it than just that. Overnight lows were also an important part, and that's actually our indication that we are seeing higher humidity for our area. So this is now what we've come up with. When we showed this to you guys a couple years ago, I can't remember who said it. I think you did, said, you know, you guys have a color scheme very similar to the AQI. Why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? Because we were trying to come up with a color scheme. And she's like, everybody knows the AQI. Why aren't you sticking with it? So it took us a while, but we did. So we have a very similar scale. It's basically green to magenta. And just like an AQI, the brighter or warmer the color, the more you need to be concerned. Okay? Fairly easy. This is now a web page that is available to everyone in the public. This is a better way to highlight the heat events instead of looking for specific points like we used to do. Now you can actually see the areas that are going to be impacted. There's now seasonal variability in this. So when we're hitting record temps, like last week when we were in the mid-90s, we had a lot of oranges out because it was unusual. And you'll see that on the shoulder seasons. And then when we get into the hot is where you'll see the real bang for the buck. It also considers how unusual is this? How long is this event going to last? Is it going to be more than a day? If it's more than a day, that's usually when you're going to see the magenta showing up. If it's a 1 or 2 day event, mostly in the reds. We've also done some research and started trying to figure out who's going to be the most impacted. Bless you. You know, like orange is for the more heat sensitive folks, like the elderly and the young folks on medication. When you get into the reds and the magentas, that's where more and more people are being impacted, and the messaging needs to increase, and so does the advisories and headlines. So this is just a sample of just across California, the 1,400 sites just in California that were used to come up with these graphs. So now we have seasonal graphs for every single location. We took that information and we plugged it into Prism, which is basically, it took into account topographic features, and it allows us to map it out. And now you can see that there's a maximum temperature curve. There's also a minimum temperature curve. And that's how we get this. So this is based on our 7-day forecast compared to those heat curves, both maximum and minimum temperatures. It's a 24-hour time frame. So what you're looking at is midnight to midnight. and the daytime max temperatures in between. How are we going to use this? When you see those reds and magentas, you'll likely see watches, increased messaging, of course, warnings, and the oranges will see increased messaging and potential advisories. Not always will we have advisories like last week. The reason we didn't is because we were cooling off at night. You know, you were still waking up in the morning needing a jacket as you headed out, and that's playing that big difference. Not all oranges are going to be the same. So this is a look back. If we would have been using this HeatRisk technique, we look back at the last 11 years. And so this is last year, 2016. Last year, because we actually didn't have that hot of a summer compared to the previous two, wasn't too bad. We only had one advisory and probably increased messaging. Back in 2015 or even 2013, when we actually had some pretty good heat waves, everyone remembers June of 2013, all the graduations that had to be canceled because we had that early June heat. That would have constituted probably a warning and advisory for that. You know, we get hot here, right? In the summer, it gets, my husband complains every year. We moved here from Montana. He's like, I hate it here in the summer. But, you know, that's things we now are acclimated to it, so we get used to it. But folks coming in from outside, they aren't acclimated to it. That's why this is going to be so helpful for us and for you. And the averages over the last 11 years, really, it's not going to increase our messaging that much more. I mean, our warnings, excuse me, but it's still going to allow us a better tool to message to you guys and to the public, our viewing audience, everything, to make sure we're all singing off the same sheet of music. Go ahead, Bill. What were you going to point out?
They may not know what that KONS column means.
Oh, sorry.
And that, but that's okay. You may be covering it later. But it's for you guys to know when you go to our web pages now and you see orange on there. And like Michelle just said, we're trying to tie these colors into our legacy products by issuing, a heat advisory or a heat home. If you see orange on there, we may not be issuing a traditional product with it. But what's nice about it, we tried to build it so the forecasters would consider it. So they can think about, like, if it's the 4th of July weekend, if the Strawberry Festival's going on, if something socially important is going on. The orange is telling them it's an anomalously hot period, but maybe it's in the middle of the week, maybe it's a small area, maybe it's out in the foothills where nobody lives. So it's letting us as meteorologists, knowing our area, knowing what's going on, and kind of giving us some wiggle room to issue things or not. So last year there would have been 2 situations where we had that choice, and who knows what we would have done. But that's what that little comments means.
Yeah, that's that kind of gray-orange area.
Yeah, so if you see orange, that doesn't mean we may issue an advisory with an orange, we may not.
Right. And that's the other part, as meteorologists, as an agency, before we were very black and white. If it hit this temperature, we would do this thing. And now we're realizing that there's a lot more factors out there, like Bill had mentioned. It's like if it was graduation week last week, we probably would have had something out because there was going to be tons of people out doing parties and outdoor events, but it's still spring. Everyone's in school. There are some track meets here and there, but for the most part, you don't have large quantities of people gathering outside during peak heat of the day. The nice thing about this is you guys can use this information during your broadcast now. The images are available, and I'll show you, but we have the KML feature now. So you can bring that right into your broadcast, just like you do with the AQI. You can now say, hey, it looks like it's going to be real hot in the Sacramento for the Asparagus Festival. Make sure you're packing extra water, not going during the peak of the heat of the day. The other thing, in the legacy world of weather service, we typically wait to pull the trigger on these things in the first 2 days. Watches, of course, are beyond that, but this is something you guys can use. Hopefully we will be messaging if we're seeing heat potential in the next 7 days. We'll do that with our partner emails. But this is a way for you guys from those partner emails to go in and say, hey, is this impacting my viewing area? If not, okay. If it is, it's another way for you to help message that a lot of graduations are coming up. It's going to be warm. It's again, spreading that message, getting awareness up. What we really want to do is get folks to change their behavior so we don't have the heat fatalities and impacts. As long as we can get people to change their behavior, then we won't have the mortality and morbidity with the heat that we've seen in the past. So where can you find it? This is now on our homepage. This is our new web page. So under forecasts, you click on experimental heat risk, and this is the page you get. So we'll do a live demo here real fast. Oh, and it opened in Explorer. It doesn't always work in Explorer. It's built for Chrome. So one of the nice features about this is it does have layers. If I can turn them on.
And this is the world's worst mouse.
It is. So you can click on your counties, on and off with your counties. It's Esri, so you can zoom in pretty tight if you want.
You can change the opacity.
You can change the opacity. So it is 508 compliant. So if you dim down the opacity, you'll notice that the bar, the graph on the side also corresponds to the colors on the map. You have the option of scrolling through each day and looking, or you can just click on the map and there will be a 7-day forecast, and the bar across the top is color coded for the day's events. So you can see if in the 7 days, if there's a specific day you need to look out for.
And that's based on the point you clicked on.
Correct. That is based on the point you click on. So if you're real close to a red and an orange, or a yellow and an orange, and you don't hit specifically on the orange and it all shows up yellow, just zoom in a little closer and you'll be able to click where the orange is. Down or up here you can do permalinks. So if you have a viewing area that you want to zoom in on, if you bookmark it, it's a permalink for you that you can save. This is the download KML. So a new page will open for that. And this is the one that I sent the email about yesterday. It's updated every hour now automatically, and you can either scroll, have it play, or you can click on and off each day and keep it that way. Unfortunately, we tried to get the ArcGIS option layer to do the same thing, but because this is considered experimental, they wouldn't let us make it a public layer as of yet. You can still download them this way, but you would have to go in every day and download them. So that's the drawback of that one. Again, if you wanted a quick and dirty graphic, if you were just wanting to highlight the whole state, you can just click on a day that you saw a lot of orange or red, and you could share that social media wise. Hey, you heading to Southern Cal this weekend? It's going to be a hot one. Things like that. And what's the last thing I want to highlight on here? Oh, if you like it or there's something you would like added, if you click on the survey, that's going to go back to our regional office, and they will take that under consideration. They will also use that if you say, hey, this was great, you know, it really helped me spread the message. We're using that to hopefully get this to not be experimental, be an official product.
How long do you think that will take?
Well, this took us 4 years to get here.
So it could be a while.
It could be a while, but we're hopeful that the more feedback we can get. In fact, I just shared the link with the Western Association of Public Utilities because they were looking at how to monitor for load forecasting. And they were looking specifically for point data. And I just said, well, you might find this interesting. She's like, that's amazing. That'll work great. Because, again, it's a visual way to really show folks what that potential is, just like the AQI. It's very intuitive, and it's a way for folks to realize, as long as we can message it correctly, and you guys will help us do that, that, you know, if this is a weekend or a week we need to be looking out for. So thank you for partnering with us. If you ever have questions on it, Bill or I have been on it since the beginning, so we have a lot of historical knowledge, but anyone in the staff can help you with it too. And it's like I said, it's on our public webpage, so you're able to use it and whatever you need from it. So
Our goal is to go national with this.
yes,
So,
our goal is to make it national. So yeah, it's us, Arizona, and Nevada who are going to use it for our heat products this year, and they're testing up in the Pacific Northwest and hopefully the Inner Northwest.